Peace and welcome to the Culture's Black Men Summit here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, today is a very, very special day as we go into day two of our Black Men Summit, a day where we're going to focus on politics. So it's actually quite fascinating that on a day like today, as we talk about Black men in politics, that there is a hotly contested situation or vote that's happening right now where a Black man, Representative Hakeem Jeffries, is up for consideration to possibly be the next House Speaker. So we've been keeping our eyes on this situation. And if this seems to happen in the midst of a GOP fracture, where they have ousted one of their very own members, Kevin McCarthy, just a couple of weeks ago, now to be in a place where the folks that they wanted to be there, they at first thought Representative Steve Scalise out of Louisiana would be the next House Speaker. He drops out of the race, and now it's left to Representative Jim Jordan, who was not able to get the full amount of the full quota votes of 221 votes to become the next House Speaker. So they're doing another round. And so that has left the lane to be open for Democrats to push forward Representative Hakeem Jeffries at this time, where he is actually up in the votes. Right now, the votes stand at 212 for Representative Hakeem Jeffries and 200 votes for Representative Jim Jordan. And people are trying to see if history will once again be made in the House of Representatives. Now, today we're going to have this discussion about this whole situation, but more importantly, we're going to have this discussion about how Black men can become more engaged in the political process. And so I'm very, very excited to talk to our first guest. He serves as a pastor. He is also an activist. He is a man that knows his way around not just the political space, but also in the community. I've had the honor and the privilege of working with this man and just knowing this man for years. He has literally watched me grow up in the city of Baltimore as I've done the work of community organizing and activism. But we wanted to bring him here to talk to us about Black men being engaged in the political process. We want to welcome to the airwaves of the culture here on the Black Star Network, Dr. Reverend Todd Yeary. Has been working in the area of equity and civil rights. He does so for the city of Baltimore. Brother Todd, how are you, dear brother? Good afternoon.
Faraji Muhammad, if I had known I was going to have a family reunion today, I'd have signed up for this a long time ago. I can't tell you. This has made my week, and the week just getting started. My man.
Well, I appreciate you, brother, for being on the culture. Welcome.
Dude, I'm special. You wait till I tell all of my friends.
I'm happy to see you again, big brother. I'm happy to see you. Let me just say, so for those who don't know, that Reverend Todd Yeary is a man that works behind the scenes. He doesn't do a lot of that grandstanding in terms of wanting to be in front of the camera. But if you want to know where power is, if you want to know how the system works, if you want to know how to get people moving, Reverend Todd Yeary is the guy to go to learn. He knows all of the ins and outs, especially of local politics, state politics, and of course, keeping his eyes on what's happening nationally. So, Brother Todd, I am truly, truly honored. And it's such a pleasure to once again see you, brother. And yeah, we're right here on this space, and I couldn't think of somebody better to be a part of this conversation. Let's start off the conversation with this piece, Brother Todd. And I know we're going to have more brothers checking in with us, but I wanted to start off this. First, I want to get your take on what's happening within the House of Representatives with Hakeem Jeffries, Representative Jim Jordan, what we're seeing here on a national level. What do you see in terms of Black folks getting political power in this moment right now?
So there's a lot to that question. Let's start with what's going on. The circus has come to town. The clowns have showed up for work. They all rolled in a little car, red noses, big shoes, and here we go. And so what you have is the dysfunction within the Republican Party that's been kind of in this interesting space of negotiating around interests without really coalescing around an agenda. And it is playing itself out just as you see all of the other noise outside the room with the former president, his legal issues, and also trying to figure out how the Republican nomination is going to play out, even at the same time when you have a current incumbent of the White House of the Democratic Party with all of the first not really being able to get traction after all of the otherwise forward social program policies that he was able to get through in his first 2 years. So you have this interesting dynamic. The challenge is now that we're at the end of the pandemic, now that things have kind of reset, now that gas prices are as scary now as they have ever been, prices for everything is high. You can't even pay attention without paying a premium. Those are the issues that are making a lot of folks, not just Black folk, feel very vulnerable and very uncertain. The issue for Black men is the issues affecting Black men don't seem to be part of the public discourse or the public conversation. And so when we look at how we're navigating, you've got the wars in the Middle East likely to expand after the incident today with the bombing of the hospital. You've got other major world players deciding they're not going to sit out. China and Russia are now starting to have their conversation. The war between Russia and Ukraine is still demanding a lot of attention, and the pressure on NATO to try to further expand against this building coalition between North Korea, China, Russia, and other countries means then now there's a whole lot of noise at the top and a whole lot of pain at the bottom. And so when we start looking at what needs to go on and what needs to go down, as I've often said, and you know we've talked about this at the grassroots level in Baltimore City, is that politics always starts locally. We can't just get enamored with the big shiny thing at the top, but we have to also understand that budgets are passed at all levels of government. Public money is spent local, state, and federal. And if we're not having a complete conversation, if we're just waiting on some crumbs to fall from the master's table in the White House, we're going to find ourselves actually in a much more precarious situation than we are right now.
Wow, waiting for some crumbs to fall from the master's table. Because I feel like that's exactly the space that we're in, Brother Todd, that we are in a place right now where we're hoping and wishing instead of moving and making things happen. That's exactly where I feel. Look, I got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's go further along in this, because Brother Todd, you know, you have been in these spaces for these conversations locally and nationally. And I know you've done some work with the Obama administration around his initiative for Black men and boys. And so it's always interesting to see that these things are happening. We see some level of representation like we see with Hakeem Jeffries, but at the same time, there's still this lag. And when we come forward on the other side, I want us to talk about this lag, or this disconnect rather, that Black men have with not just with politicians by personality, but with political action. And I'm gonna share with you just some of the studies and the latest research around this. So we're just getting started. We got my brother, Reverend Todd Eury, Dr. Todd Eury, joining us. And we want to hear from you folks. Join us in the conversation. We're streaming live right now on Roland Martin's YouTube page. You can join us in the chat and be a Culture Crew member for the day, as we have day 2. We're just getting started with day 2 of the Black Men Summit, redefining and celebrating Black manhood. We're talking Black men in politics today. Stay with us. The conversation continues on the other side here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punching!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Faraji Muhammad. Today is day 2 of our summit, and we're talking Black men in politics. And joining me is Dr. Reverend Todd Eury, who is doing some phenomenal work. He serves as the senior pastor of his church. He's also is a political strategist. He's also been working in the space of equity and inclusion and civil rights. And today, whereas we talk about these things, we're talking about the big disconnect that Black men have within the political system, from political parties, and just being us uniting politically all together. In a moment, I want to bring my brother, somebody that I think you might know, Brother Todd, Rashad Stanton. He's going to be joining us as he serves as the Executive Director of Community Law and Action, and he's a young politico himself in the space. But I want to get your take on this very quickly, Brother Todd, because CNN did a piece last year where they talked to a Black man down in Georgia. This was happening when the election of Raphael Warnock happened, when that campaign was going with him, between him and Herschel Walker. And they were trying to get a piece about the sentiment that Black men have. They named the piece, this is interesting, Black men feeling ignored. I want to just pull this piece up very quickly, and I want to get your take on it. It says, Black men say they feel ignored by politicians. It says in this first screen, let's go to quote number 1, please. Thank you. Aaron Bethea says that he has voted election after election for U.S. presidents, governors, and senators, and yet those lawmakers have done little to nothing to improve the life for him, his family, or his community. Bethea said he believes the issues he cares about, financial freedom and equal investment in predominantly Black schools, have largely been ignored. He said, quote, where we are from, nobody really cares about what Black men think. Now, he's an Atlanta father of 6 who owns a wholesale company that sells televisions. He said, they don't do anything for us. Now, Brother Todd, I want to kind of get your take on this. His thing, that where we are from, no one really cares about what Black men think. And he speaks to a sentiment where Black men do not feel connected. Black men do not feel like they have a relationship with any political group. Democrats, one of the things they mentioned in this piece is that they said the messaging is wrong, so it doesn't appeal. Republicans, even though that some Black men, we are conservative in some areas of our life, and the idea of families and all of those things might be in alignment, the racism is still a problem. So we're not feeling connected. How do we start to bridge the gap in this situation, Brother Todd?
So there are a couple of things that's telling in the quote. One is having voted in national elections, but trying to get national politics to address my local needs. We've had this disconnect around civics that everything works in the 4-year national presidential cycle. And so we don't see where there have been votes for who's on the city council, who's sitting in the mayor's chair, who's representing us in the state houses. And what we've seen over the last decade or so is the erosion of interest, because what we have is, with the boys running through the house, what we have is the needs of a leaning towards states' rights. What we've seen from this Supreme Court, let's kind of connect these dots. This Supreme Court has taken on more of a posture that individual states get to decide what happens within their borders. If that then means states' rights is the new political framework, we have to have states' rights interests. Remember, electing the president is not a one election thing. It is 50 statewide elections that lead to one presidential outcome. And so if we don't get more attuned to what's happening, not just in DC, but what's happening in Maryland, in Virginia, in North and South Carolina, in Georgia, if we don't have the ability to translate and speak to the needs within that context and connect the dots to how those needs lead us to a nationally organized collective action to determine who's going to sit in the House, who's going to sit in the Senate, who's going to sit in the White House, then those are going to be the issues that leave us behind. And what we've seen, let me take you back to the date when, in I think Bill Clinton's first midterm, Newt Gingrich was the Speaker of the House, and they came out with something called the Contract with America. I think it was a Contract on America. And what they did is they started to work to dismantle and reposition controlling state legislatures and governor's chairs, so that when they started redrawing political maps that determine who represents you in the House of Representatives in DC, they started gaming this whole system. And because we got enamored by the optics of personality, yes, we elected Barack Obama as the first Black president, but that was good for optics. We lost a lot in terms of statewide substance. We've got to get back to recognizing that we have a totally comprehensive state by state collaborative process, because we're going to have to do some coalition building, but we cannot this ain't the Jedi mind trick. We can't just look at the shiny thing in front of us trying to figure out who's going to sit in the Oval Office, invite some preachers to come sit by and have a prayer meeting, lay hands on you and do all that other kind of stuff, when after you finish praying P-R-A-Y-I-N-G, you start praying P-R-E-Y-I-N-G on the interest of those who have the most at stake. That's the conversation that we got to get back to. And we got to do real grassroots organizing so that when we build critical mass, it leads to critical outcomes in our favor.
I absolutely love that. I want to bring Brother Rashad into the conversations, who serves as the Executive Director of Community Law and Action. And Brother Rashad, what's your take on this? And welcome again, big brother. Good to see you as always, Brother Rashad. Brother Rashad, what's your take on this? That Black men are not, we don't have a home politically. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We do not have a home politically. I want to throw this out there, and then I want to get your take on this. Let's go to quote number 2 on this, please, Lise. This is what, and we've had our brother Jason Nichols. He talks. He's been a contributor here on the show and for Black Star Network. But he said this in this same CNN quote. He said, if some of them talking about us as black men. He says some of them feel unmotivated because they don't feel spoken to. Then you really got a problem. He said a lot of these campaigns don't hire black male advisors. They don't hire black men to actually tell them how to reach black men. So far, 39% of black voters have been men and 61% have been women, according to Catalyst, a company that provides data and other services to Democrats, academics, and nonprofit issue advocacy organizations. So Rashad, is it really just about the messaging? Or is it just like you saying, like Brother Todd is saying, the simple fact that we're in a time and a place where we're not asking for the right stuff. We're involved more with the optics and not looking to really build the substance. What's your take, bro?
Look, I'm listening, and brother Todd is right on point, right? I believe I don't want to be redundant and making his points much clearer because I think he hit it right on the nail. I think the distinction that we are seeing, and to be honest, that quote, I think it makes it much simpler and clear for people to digest the realities. We know in the larger spectrum, especially on a national platform in politics, there's not candidates that have talking points specifically to the demographic of African American or Black American males, right? Those that identified that. One, if they said it's the representation of who's a part of these campaign committees. And we are also noticing that we are not a monolithic people and we have our prioritizations that may be different. But I think the reality is these talking points is also reflective of the populace that they want to continue to attract, knowing that a Democratic Party can easily sway the Black vote by targeting the Black woman. And now we see an emergence of an over-specification of our brown communities, and where we're corralled as Black and brown into one. So if they can tap into another demographic that is already have a continuity of high voter turnout, they don't see the necessary value in the gainfulness of trying to speak directly to Black. I want to say even more specific. I want to get even more specific. Black heterosexual males, right, into 2023. And I think it comes down to the realities of what manhood is and where we are socioeconomically, where we are on our educational level, and where we are to the point of what are our priorities, right? And Brother Todd nailed it right there. It's in the reality that I think a lot of it is if we don't make the connection to putting the demands on the local and the state, we will never see it trickle up into the federal level to start to see implementation from the executive level that will actually corral the momentum and the progress that Black men need in this country. I think our front needs to be based off of an economic front, one in particular that gives us gainful employment and trying to rewrite the dark history of the justice system and how they engage with Black males specifically. But I think what we are seeing is absolutely true. Now, what we do is we have to be in the sense of, I always say, if you don't see it, we have to put ourselves in place to be it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, we got to take another quick pause. When we come forward, Brother Todd, I want to get your take on what Brother Rashad just said, but more importantly, I want to get your thoughts as well on this idea that I was thinking about in terms of bringing us closer to our political power, talking about voting our values. Folks, if nothing else, we need to figure out what are the key values that we want to see on the ballot. And more importantly, how do Black men get in touch with themselves? How do we get in touch with ourselves, to vote our values? Folks, the conversation will continue as we have day 2 of the Culture's Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Blackhood and Black manhood. And we're talking about Black men in politics. Join the conversation. Go into Roland Martin's YouTube page and be a Culture crew member for the day. And stay tuned. It's the Culture's Black Men Summit here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
A lot of stuff that we're not getting, you get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandS.Martin.com. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power!
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture's Black Men Summit, redefining and celebrating Black manhood. We are into day 2 of our summit, where we're talking about Black men in politics. And joining me has been 2 dynamic brothers who I love and appreciate a lot. We have Dr. Reverend Todd Eury that is joining us live from Baltimore. He's checking in to share his thoughts, as he's been a man in and around political spaces for many, many years, as well as doing social justice and community activism and grassroots work. And also joining me is my brother Rashad, who serves as the executive director for the nonprofit organization Community Law in Action, as we talk about Black men in politics. And folks, we want you to join us in the conversation right now as we're streaming live on Roland Martin's YouTube page. You can be there to join us as part of today's online culture crew. And folks are checking in from around the country. Have a great number of folks that's watching today's show to share their thoughts on this. But let me go back to you, Brother Todd, on this. As I was listening to Brother Rashad talking about this importance of engaging Black men, especially young brothers, which is why I invited him. And I'm glad you were able to join us today, because I think there has to be, the disconnect first starts with the generations, right? And I think that the fact that you have older Black men connecting to younger Black men who want to do something to change the quality of life of their people and themselves and their families, that has to happen. That gap has to happen. But Brother Todd, I know you've heard this terminology. I believe Dr. King mentioned this, and I mean, other folks have talked about this, but there needs to be, in my opinion, a revolution of values in this country when it comes to Black men. A revolution of values that this time around, when we are preparing for this upcoming presidential election in 2024, we have to vote our values and not just talk about what we want politically. And I think those are 2 different things, Brother Todd. two different things. What you value and what you advocate for are politically maybe two different things. And I'm not saying that they should be. I think that one's personal politics comes out of one's values. So talk to us as to understanding why it is important for Black men to be connected to themselves to the point they know what they value. It's easy to say what you don't like, but now we're talking about what are the things that you believe in, that you're willing to stand up for.
So, Faraji, there are a couple of things that come to mind there. Some come from the lessons at my mama's table. Mama always fixed dinner, and sometimes she fixed my favorite meal, but she was only going to cook one time. And so you had to make sure, growing up, I was the middle of three boys. You had to make sure that every meal at least had something on the plate that you wanted. You didn't always get the main course, but you got something on the menu. Our problem is we come to the restaurant not having an idea of what's going to satisfy our appetite. And so we allow then the chef to cook for everybody else and just allow us to sit down while everybody else eats.
All right, Greg, hold on, Pastor. Hold on. Come on, hold on, brother.
What you say? You say rewind. You gotta drop it.
Hold on. We're coming to the restaurant, allowing the chef to make whatever he wants, so she wants to prepare for us.
For everybody,
and we're not saying we're not ordering off the menu. We're at the table though. Hey, brother Tom, we're at the table, but we ain't ordering off the menu.
We watching what everybody else eats because we're wondering why didn't we get something on the menu? And part of that is tied to just showing up. We have this argument, this issue that we often wrestle with is because they're not courting me, I'm not going to force them to deal with me. See, the issue of revolution is you can try to ignore me, but I'm going to stay in your face until you not only acknowledge me, you respect me. See, part of showing up is not trying to get somebody to come talk to me. I get it. That's important. We want them to speak to us. But elections are not about who comes to speak to us. Elections are about us speaking to those who say they need our vote. Let me tell you what's curious in this whole thing in DC right now today. Do we realize they're having an election to figure out who's going to be the second in line after the vice president to be president of the United States as part of what we would call the lower chamber? Now, Jim Jordan comes from a districts in the United States are roughly about 700,000 persons. Not all of them are voting age. So somewhere you've got a subset of 700,000 people, not even the majority of the voting age folks vote, who then decide that he's going to be the representative to go to DC to put himself in a position now to possibly be the Speaker of the House who controls the agenda. All of your money bills start in the House. So how is it that we decide we're going to sit out of an entire process because somebody don't want to come talk to me? I don't need you. I'm coming to talk to you. I know where your office is. I know what I know your phone number. It's public. I know your address. It's public. And the beauty of it is, if anybody's ever read the Kerner Commission report, the Kerner Commission report is like confession on paper. The Kerner Commission said, here's the problem with America. It's white racism. That's a public document. Here was the other thing they said. They said something about Black power. And the definition of Black power in the Kerner Commission report is having the ability to swing the outcome of an election. When Black folks show up, we change the outcome. When Black men, it's like anything else. If you want to spook the political process, it's the same process that spooks them when you're walking through the department store. Just show up. When you show up and you vote, it makes them have to pay attention to your presence, and then they have to start listening to what it is that you're expecting of them, so that when they go in the back and they figure out what they're going to cook from the ingredients that are on the shelf, they may not have your main course. They're going to have something you want on that menu. I guarantee it.
I want to offer some pushback on something you said. Monkey Confessions, one of our Culture Crew members in the chat, he said, Black men as a whole know what they want, or we know what we want as a whole. It's just, and this is not what he's saying, that he ended his moment. I'm going to just add to that. But it's just the fact that we're not seeing it. We're constantly being told to engage, but the level of engagement, and I understand what the sentiment of some people might say, hey, you know what? This political space, I voted, like we talked about the brother from Georgia, Anton Bethea. He said he voted in every election and he still doesn't feel seen. He still doesn't feel heard. And one of the things, Brother Todd, I want to get your take, and then Brother Rashad, is that if people have a legitimate beef with political parties and say, look, I come out, I support, I'm telling people to do it, but how come you not speaking to my interest? And then the moment they decide, I'm not going to vote in the next election, they're ostracized, they're scrutinized, and they're being told that they're turning their back on Black people, when in fact, they've been participated in those elections time and time again. They tried to keep hope alive. Brother Todd, what's your take?
Yeah, you decided to tap into the quote of our dearly beloved Reverend Jesse Jackson, and
right.
I was able to visit with him when I was in Chicago on yesterday. Look, here's the thing. Voting in election is important. It's an important thing. It's not the only thing, right? The next thing is if they start ignoring you, and you remember this after, Freddie Gray's rough ride leads to his death. We end up having to deal with, the aftermath of trying to make sure that we don't go back to that same kind of dysfunctional system leading to consent decrees, trying to figure out how you change the structure. That required a whole lot of showing up that had nothing to do with an election. It had to do with the meeting. We were in council meetings. We were at budget meetings. We were at community meetings. We were at meetings on the corner just to be kind of checking in. At the end of the day, we got to have an entire process. And here's what I often use as the analogy, right? Monopoly has changed the look of the board many times since Parker Brothers came out. They've never changed the rules. And simply by changing the appearance, thinking we're going to get a change in the rules is not how it is. And so while we argue about who's going to be the cat, who's going to be the shoe, who's going to be the cannon, nobody wants to be the thimble because, unless you know sewing, you don't know what a thimble is. You don't know what it does. But the issue is you got to have a piece to be able to play, and you got to play, and you got to do more than play to survive, to get past go to collect $200 so you don't get stopped on Park Place or Boardwalk because you can't afford to pay the rent. If we're not in the process to build the Baltic avenues as we move around that border and the properties get more expensive, then what we're saying is we want to just show up one time and then expect the rest of everything to fall into place. Voting is the starting point. It's not the only point, and we've got to make sure that we're fully engaged as we work around the board, trying to get past community chest, trying not to go to jail, trying to make sure we don't have to pay nobody no rent that we can't pay. Monopoly is the name of this game. We call that capitalism in America. That's the rule. How are we going to play this game? And they're not going to come ask you what you think. You're going to have to demand it. Power concedes nothing without a demand, and you can't demand from the sidelines.
Rashad, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I want to get your take on this, Brother Rashad. Plus, let's talk about what is happening around the country with Black men, getting them more engaged. I'm going to share with you the story of one group that is working out of the city of Boston in Massachusetts. Folks, Massachusetts is trying to move forward. They're moving fast and trying to get people involved in racial justice there. I'm going to share with you what one group is doing and possibly how that work can be duplicated around the country. Plus, I have to throw this historic fact out there for you, because as much as we're talking about disengagement, as much as we're talking about being represented and seen, we cannot forget there are moments in our history, Black history, where we can use them as guideposts for this new and uncharted territory that we find ourselves in. So folks, stay with us. The conversation continues right on the other side as we continue to have more discussion about Black men for the Culture's Black Men Summit here on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture's Black Men Summit here as we're talking about redefining and celebrating Black manhood. And today's conversation for day 2 is Black men in politics. And so I've been joined by my brothers Rashad, my brother Todd, as we've been having these conversations about this. And I'm grateful that these brothers are able to share insight. Brother Rashad, let's talk a little bit about what Brother Todd just kind of laid out. We have a few moments left in the show today, but talking about getting to that point where we understand and we not only know what our values are, but we understand our power, right? And I think that's the frustration that a lot of Black men, and you and I have had many conversations about, keep believing in a system that don't seem to recognize us, that don't seem to see us as the people that we are. And there's a group of Black men out of Boston that is looking to change the whole energy and culture of this whole situation. There's this group called the Black Men's Political Task Force, folks. And Lisa, if we can put the headline for this group, they were in the Bay State Banner. They were featured in the Bay State Banner. This is the Black Men's Political Task Force out of Boston, Massachusetts. Take a look, folks. This is a task force, according to their founder, who is a pastor, Brother Todd, The founder is Reverend Miniard Culpepper, and I'm gonna try to get Reverend Culpepper to come on to the show. But Reverend Culpepper said, we formed the Black Men's Political Task Force to provide political training, voting rights training. He said, we want to lobby for the appointment of Black men to positions of leadership in government at all levels. The task force currently has over 40 members from around the Boston area who are passionate about the organization's purpose and message. Culpepper said the task force is looking to propose a quote unquote New Deal, citing a Brookings Institution article by Camille Bousset advocating for specific policy and programs tailored to uplifting Black men and boys. In that same study from the Brookings Institute, let's go to quote 4, please. Thank you. Only 28% of Black men have a bachelor's degree or higher, and also more likely to experience unemployment and lower pay compared to other demographics. Black men are 5 times more likely than white men to be incarcerated and are overrepresented in the prison population, according to Brookings. Reverend Culpepper said, when you think about where we are and you think about the excluded, underrepresented, devalued, and you look at our place in society, we believe that as Black men that we must advocate for Black men to participate in a more meaningful way. Do we need to have Black men political task force all across this country, Brother Rashad? Is that going to be part of this answer?
It's one of the many vehicles, right? One of the many vehicles, as you said, physical representation and a collective thinking to mobilize with the aim of doing it with continuity and consistency to understand that politics is a long game. But that comes into educational, that comes into training, and that comes in understanding how to navigate the system of politics, which is a system in itself and a study and a science. It has to be taught, and has to be taught in a space that's digestible. So I believe even creating a task force as such will be very valuable, but it cannot be the only and singular direction, right? Because once this one group dissolves or changes their own prioritization, it then not fits the larger masses, and it has to be localized per state, and even down to a certain districts and counties. It will all look particularly different based off of the individual needs, but it has to have collective value that we spoke on earlier. I always say this, and now that I'm aging into both my professional work and just having years of understanding politics as a youth leader to now a young adult professional, I'm making it more. I'm gaining a sense of politics from now. How do you play it with the understanding, right? I'm actively involved in politics locally, but it is a daunting reality to make sure that they understand what your values are. You have to be mindful of the transitions and the turnover between your elected officials. You have to be mindful of their upward mobility and their own self-interest of moving up the ladder from local to possibly even state to even federal, right? And we have to be mindful of that to know what is our gainful wins. I'm always telling folks, again, if you're understanding, and it talks about, yes, the social economics, the educational level will always tend to be one of the factors of how engaged we are civically. But the reality is, do we look at it from a lens that makes it make sense, right? Federal, when I'm thinking of federal laws and things of that sort, yes, we have these cycles and term limits, but the federal law is going to have a long-term impact. Because it's going to be protected in most have the continuity between the House and the state. But then your state level is going to talk about the immediate prioritizations of fundings and policies that's going to trickle down to your local. And your local is going to it's going to directly impact what is happening day by day. So that's how I engage with a Black man. I'm first asking them, what is your immediate needs? What is your immediate values, right? What has been your long-term frustration? And then we categorize that to make it to say, all right, you may want to turn your attention to this, but know that in between of you going for this long-term game, these players are changing. The system is not, it's not playing. The players are changing, but are you willing to be a lifelong dedicated fan of politics and your interests and your values as much as you're just a long-term fan of your favorite sports team, right? It's no reason to die a Dallas Cowboy fan and you don't understand all the way to young childhood to you go into your elderhood and you don't understand what has been your values from a young person to an older adult. I mean, it has to be interchangeable, and we have to shift our jersey, right? I went from playing athleticism to playing the game of politics, and I see it in the same nature. I might love this team, but I know I may have to switch out my quarterback, and that's how we
there it is.
Our elected officials.
I'm right there with you, Brother Todd. And we got a couple of moments left. And when I'm listening to Rashad, listening to you, when I think about the work that those brothers are doing down in Boston, the Black Men's Political Task Force, something comes to mind. Now, I had to pull this one out, but this is the book right here. It's called The Defeat of Black Power, Civil Rights in the National Black Political Convention of 1972. If you have not had a chance to do your history, look up the National Black Political Convention of 1972. And I think, Brother Todd, that when we talk about political power, that's why I said, see, some of us, we kind of come to the silly space of this ain't never, no. Black people history in this country, when you're talking about coming from a space of chattel slavery all the way up until this present moment, we have actually, I think, Brother Todd, we have touched potential ideas for our liberation through this sojourn, through our time here on the shores of America. But for part of the culture has been to forget the past and act as if nothing has happened, and then we're supposed to create a new future, when there has been moments throughout our own Black history where we have seen glimpses of greatness. Yesterday, we celebrate the 28th anniversary of the historic Million Man March, because people was like, man, we ain't had no marches. What? Let's just look at what happened 28 years ago, right? That's not a long time in the big scheme of things. People say, well, Black folks never had political power. 1972, Gary, Indiana. Black folks came by the thousands, crowded a high school gym. This is right outside of Chicago, and started to map out for a 3-day period what the national Black political strategy will be. So Brother Todd, help me to understand as we wrap up this part of the discussion. How do we start to tap into our history to start looking at those moments in history as guiding posts? Because we are in a different space, granted. We have more challenges, granted. There's more technology and all of this thing, but we're still at the same place. Very quickly, I heard Reverend Jesse Jackson say that 1995, his strategy when he was helping to organize the Million Man March, he said there were 8 million people, Black people, that were unregistered to vote. Our strategy is to get 4 million of those people registered to vote by the 1996 election. That was 28 years ago. That's the same strategy we're using today.
Yep.
Talk to me, brother. Talk to me.
So a couple of things. You talking good there, as we say in church service. Look, one, you can't tap into a history that you do not know. So that's number one. And if we keep relying on the system of the oppressor to teach us how we actually arrived here, we then get disconnected from really the source of our strength and power. If we think about this whole notion of pushing back against the Black vote, particularly after the Civil War, that was pushed back against the Black male vote because women still did not have the right to vote. And so Black male political power is not foreign to us. It has always had to meet up against resistance that was trying to deny us the full representation of the interests of our community. That's number one. When you talk about Gary in 1972 and the recognition that we would push for an agenda, we've got to continue that. And the new fight has to be Black men reclaim your place in the political process. That's the only way we're going to make sure that we get what we need on the menu, and it's not our behinds on the menu in the process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I got to stop it right there. Brother Pastor Dr. Todd Geary, let me just tell you, brother, how grateful I am for you and for your work, and more importantly, your insight, because to give us an anchor on which to think about these things. My brother Rashad, always proud of you, and I'm so happy that you're able to join us to talk about these things. Folks, just follow these brothers on social media. They're doing dynamic work, but they are pushing the culture. Pastor, I know that you want to chat about some things after the fact because we do have to get prepared for 2024. We do have to be prepared. But look, let me just say, I think we can have a lot of pots cooking on the stove here, Brother Todd. We can talk about voter empowerment, but I want to talk about how do we cultivate the next generation of Black political leaders in this system of things, right? We could talk about making sure that we have proper representation, but I want to really seriously talk about how do we take away the stigma of the big ideas from everything from Black folks in democracy, Black folks in socialism. We could talk about coalition building, but I really want us to come up with a pathway to connect with other marginalized communities that have been oppressed because of white supremacy. Come on, can we think a little bit deeper? I know we can because you've been doing it. Brother Rashad, you've been doing it, so I know we can do it. I know we can do it. Look, let's give our, again, Brother Rashad, Brother Todd, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for the both of you. Thank you for being so good for the culture.
Hey, thank you, man. Always for the culture. And I'm paying you a visit, Reverend Doctor. I'm paying you a visit. I'm coming up here.
We're gonna have a meetup. The numbers in the chat. We got to talk. And remember, Faraji, Mama had 4 eyes on the stove. Rice was on the back eye. You had vegetables over in the corner. You had the meat on the front, whatever that meat was. And then for those of us from the South, Mama always had to have a little fat back to give it a little flavor. So at the end of the day, we got to have more than one pot cooking. Otherwise, somebody gonna come up short on the meal. We got to make sure all of our folks eat, not just some.
There it is, right there. There it is. So we're not only at the table, we cooking a meal as well. There it is. There it is. All right, brothers. I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Culture, folks. That's going to do it for us. I thank each and every one of you for being a part of the conversation. Big shout out to the Online Culture crew, always holding it down. Thank you so much for tuning in. Man, oh man, we have so many great people, so many great conversations, and so many great comments to come in from the Online Culture crew. So thank you so much for that. Folks, we are going to continue this summit tomorrow. I will say for day 3, as we talk about Black men in education, I got some dynamic voices for you. Y'all ever heard of Dr. Steve Perry? Yeah, he's going to be joining us tomorrow. Also, my brother, Dr. David Miller, as well as an educator by the name of Anthony Pena will be joining us tomorrow. So we're going to have that discussion about Black men in education. So make sure y'all just get ready to tune back in tomorrow here on The Culture for another fantastic hour of the Black Men Summit, where we're redefining and celebrating Black manhood. All right, folks. Also, we have yesterday's conversation. I mean, just a fascinating discussion talking about Black men in faith and spirituality with Imam Abdul Salam. We also talked to Pastor Jamal Bryant and my brother Zentola. Make sure y'all check us out there. We are streaming that as a separate conversation right now on YouTube. So make sure y'all stream it, pass it out, let folks know that we had day 1. Now we got day 2 in the bucket, in the bag. We want to make sure that we get the word out about this, and let's continue to support this process, and of course, this platform. So go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com, download the app for free, follow us on social media, and your financial support will mean everything to us to power this digital movement. Again, you can find us at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, make sure y'all follow me on social media at The Real Faraji on Instagram, Faraji on Twitter, and Faraji of The Real Faraji on Threads, and I'm on Facebook at Faraji Muhammad. But I would love to connect with y'all on my Instagram page. I'm building the network back up on that space, so make sure y'all follow me at The Real Faraji. And again, we'd love to build with you. That's going to do it for us. Big shout out to my production team, Joel, Shannon. We want to thank Chris, thank Maddie, we thank my sister Lise, and my man King Keenan for making sure the show is awesome and phenomenal. Stay tuned. Up next at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is Rolling Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition and the 3rd day of the Culture's Black Men Summit, redefining and celebrating Black manhood right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. Peace.